Star Wars thing. Everything old is new again. We're trying to redesign the Solar Cities IBC biodigester based on some experiences that we had in Sopetran, Colombia, where we were looking for a 5-inch hole saw to be able to put the feed pipe into the tank and to cut a nice 5-inch hole for the 4-inch uniseal, and there just didn't exist in any of the supermarkets or hardware stores or big stores like their equivalents to Lowe's or Home Depot. Just could not find it. We went to blacksmiths on a motorcycle, going through the town, going to back alleys, talking to people who knew people, and we couldn't even make a 5-inch cylinder that we could heat up to penetrate. So we ended up making a line and using a what do you call it, a reciprocating saw, or we just used a saw to cut around there, a jigsaw, and it's very difficult to get a clean hole and not have it leak. So that was one thing that made us think maybe for some applications it's not appropriate to use the 4-inch pipe going in. And the other was that we had this issue of finding the right kind of IBC tanks that wouldn't break. Sometimes they get brittle over time, and we've had 2 of the IBC tanks that are 10 years old crack around the 4-inch hole. The edges just eventually collapse because of the movement of the pipe, and it becomes brittleized. So not all IBC tanks are the same, and some are more UV resistant. I painted this one black. I always paint them black if I get them white or clear. And the black IBC tanks, when you buy them black, are generally stronger because of the pigment and the UV protection, but painting it isn't necessarily going to keep it from brittleizing. So what we thought is there a way to not have to cut holes in the tank at all? And that takes me back to experiments I did in Essen, Germany on my porch when I first began this, but a lot of the German tanks had big lids. And so I was able to make the center hole be the feed pipe, and then I was able to take slurry out of one side and gas out of the other, and still be able to seal it. And I thought, well, that's great. So we can just have the lid be the 3 pipes that we use in Solar Cities and not worry about penetrating the tank at all. Problem is that in many parts of the world, particularly here in the United States, the lids are tiny. And so you can get a 2-inch pipe in here, and if you can't find the right size threads, and that's also very difficult to find the right kind of fitting to go in here, you can cut it out with a 3-inch hole saw, and you can put in a bulkhead fitting as I've done here. But then you've only got 1 2-inch pipe. That's the only fit that you can make in here. And I suppose you could go up to 3 inches. There's a possibility there. But our thought was, because we are using a food grinder and incinerator, we don't really need a large feed pipe. And we've known and done this at Janice Kelsey's at Solar City's head office in Glenmore, Pennsylvania. We've been using 2-inch pipes for the feed pipe all these years, and we're talking like over 10 years, and it's worked out fine because she grinds the food. So what I've done here is I have my outlet, my fertilizer outlet, just coming out of the drain, and I'm using, because it's hard to find fittings for these drains, they're all different, I'm just using a 2-inch coupling, rubber coupling with the why do I can't think today, anyway, with the clamps, the screw clamps. And then I'm using a 2-inch to 3/4 inch reducer. You could do 1 inch if you want. I decided to go with 3/4 to save even more money. And an elbow coming up, and then I just used a plastic bag to tie it because that's the thing that was handy. And this elbow here for the fertilizer is down about where the top of my 2-inch pipe is, which I cut down considerably. So I have a 2-inch coupling, and I've got another reducer to 1/2 inch here, over to an elbow and over to a valve. That's where the gas is going to come out. It doesn't go down anymore all the way. It's just right here in the cap. That's all it is. But what I can do now is when I go to feed, I come up here, and this is not glued on. It's just fitted on. And the water level's right here. And so when I go to feed, yes, I will lose a little bit of gas. So what? So I then put this on, and I can then take my ground up food slurry and just feed the tank. And of course you get that passive overspill of your fertilizer right there. and it only takes a few minutes to go down, and then I'm going to replace it. Now, the pipe is not going to the bottom of the tank, so what's going to happen? Well, because it's ground up food waste, that slurry is going to stack up in here, and it's going to start to disperse. Again, the fats are going to float up in here, and the solids are going to eventually migrate their way down to the bottom, and then you're going to get most of your digestion happening at the top and the bottom, and then the middle is going to be where the slurry is. That's not what's coming out here. You're going to get out some stuff from the drain that is not completely digested, and that's just one of the little sacrifices that you go through. Whereas if we have the larger lid, yes, we could put the pipe that's taking the slurry out and put it down to the halfway point, and then have the gas be right at the top and have this pipe go all the way to the bottom. We can do all sorts of stuff with a larger lid, but when you've only got a small lid, then you're severely constrained. I do think, however, this holds a lot of promise, because then the tank is not going to be damaged in any way. People don't have to worry about, if I don't want to have this biodigester here, what do I do with my tank? It can always be an IBC tank, because all you're doing is affecting the lid if you have the large lid, or affecting the lid, and you're not changing the out valve, the drain valve. You're just clamping a little pipe to it. So I think it's a really elegant solution that we're going to test here. And now I can remove this and then just pop this on, and any gas that evolves, of course, is going to come up here and start putting a downward pressure, and we'll know that there's gas evolving because we will see this continuously dripping. As the gas provides a downward pressure, it's going to push the water out, and then we'll know we have gas. Then we can open the valve and we can start filling a gas bag. And we know that because at least I've kept this about 8 inches above water column, we're still going to get enough pressure that it's going to be building up the gas pressure, and it's going to come out there. So again, not a perfect solution, but you know, better than having to look everywhere for a 5-inch hole saw, which are hard to get, so we can get our feed pipe in here. The other thing you could do is don't use a 4-inch pipe, use 2-inch, because it's easy to bring a 3-inch or find a 3-inch hole saw, and then do what Janice Kelsey and I are doing up in Pennsylvania, feed through a 2-inch, have the slurry come out a 2-inch, and then take your gas out here, because those 2-inch holes have shown no signs of breaking. Let's walk over and see where it broke so you can see it. And in the meantime, I'll also show that these IBC tanks make really good zip lines. If we were going to take some slurry from this biodigester to the other, then we would walk this down. How fun is that? That's cool. So if we look over here, the 2-inch doesn't have any problems at all. And a lot of motion goes on here because it's where just the passive slurry comes out. But over here, you can see where the cracks happened, right? And that is something that's happened on 2 of our tanks now. So we know that this is a weak spot. This time we hadn't gone through the lid at all. We'd used the bulkhead here. It would have been preferable to put the bulkhead here, but we put it here at that time. But I'm thinking either we're going to do 2-inch if there's a food grinder, or we're going to go right in the lid as we did in the other one and not bother drilling holes. And then we have a much safer situation than this. All right, so happy biodigester construction. We'll hope we'll see you on the other side of gas production.